Hello folks, welcome to Walkie, talkie. It's not very often that I talk about education, right, but a professor from the University of Glasgow has said that the BBC bias crisis and also the paedophile crisis it seems to be forever rumbling on could actually cause the television broadcaster to collapse. In some ways, no shit, Sherlock. Didn't take a university person to deduce that one. But anyway, let's talk about a future without the BBC. A future without, potentially, a television licence. A future without Crapita bullying fuck out of wee Mrs. McPherson on floor 4-2 for a television licence and trying to make her sign a false admission form to get her fined, all that stuff. Usual BBC bullies type situation. A life without all that sounds actually idyllic. It really does. And a United Kingdom without one of the biggest child grooming gangs known to humanity. That sounds even more idyllic. The reality is, this possibly and probably won't even happen, but the prediction sounds about bang on. It seems like it's another week, another BBC worker caught up in sex crime implications, and to be honest, it's not exactly stopping, and it seems like HR at BBC just do not give a fuck, right? If they just do, see when we go for job interviews and we're successful for a job interview and we get a job, right? We get either a PVG, a DBS extended, or some other thing that checks our criminal history, and if we're squeaky clean, we get continuing over into tenure, and if not, a tenure comes to a quick end. No severance pay, nothing. But with BBC, they just don't do anything remote to checking. A friend of mine, he worked in a city council job. Every 6 months, he was getting his checks done, his DBS check, and that even extended to as far as the cleaners, right? So everyone got checked. The whole situation was clean and clear and transparent, right? And anybody that did get maybe caught up in a fight at the weekend and charged and all that stuff, they had to be answerable to HR. But BBC, they're not interested in doing, safety checks such as DBSs and following up with people if they got maybe charged or something like that. They're just absolutely, it's appalling really, because, in some roles you really do need to have it be clear that you are squeaky clean, and, because maybe you're interacting with vulnerable groups of society. The PVG is a thing that goes in Scotland, but ultimately, especially in journalism, there should be some level of checking, but there's nothing. And when people, let's say John Bloggs at BBC journalist gets caught up in a fist fight in Soho, gets charged, you name it. It never gets brought up by HR, and he never is compelled to actually bring it up with superiors in any capacity. But we John blogs, normal person, a bit like you and I, maybe got issues with the neighbours or something like that, and the neighbour raises a punch towards him, and he replies back, he gets charged, so does the neighbour, and by the next working day he's compelled to make contact with HR, explaining everything, and then going on garden leave until it's clear that he is either guilty or innocent. And this leaves him ever so vulnerable to be losing his job for a matter that has absolutely fuck all towards employment. Yet people in the BBC, they've got criminal histories as long as my medical records, and they can continue and act exactly the same way, like nothing ever happened. It's a kick in the dick, you know. But this two-tier state world we're living in is abhorrent. It really does make my teeth itch, really. Everyone should be held up to the same flame, no having one flame for one and another for another, you know. But, you know, again, it would be nice to actually see the BBC being held to flame with regards to what they have employed, and going to employ. You know, it's £185 for a telly licence is fucking sickening, right? And we should be getting like very, very, very core bits of value for it, like thought-provoking and entertaining content. The people who provide the content to be legally abiding, and number 3, content and the producer being safe enough for us to put our children in front of, and content being safe for children and adults alike. But you know, BBC, they love to shank us, and they'll continue shanking us until who knows when. But I think it's basically my little rant about the BBC. Oh no, quickly, I've got to say this one, and I love bringing it up. I love bringing it up. Right, remember when I used to perform stand-up? Right, not long into my tenure of stand-up, 2 people came up to me and said, would you like to do sketch work for the BBC? We think you're really funny. And what's the BBC? And they said, the British Broadcast Corporation. And I said, is that the same crowd that employed Jimmy Savile? And they kind of went very awkward and kind of nodded, and I said, get away, get to fuck, not interested, or I'll start shouting. Right? And if they didn't get out of the venue, I'd have been shouting to get them out, you know, straight and simple. So they left, and a couple of weeks later they reappeared, different people, same song, right? And I said, get out, or I'll get them to get you out. And they left again. Interestingly enough, a few people picked up for BBC comedy sketch making, whatever. And to be honest, just a quick ending summary. Anything that is produced that has the term BBC and comedy is about as funny as watching a dog having a seizure, to be honest. And you don't know where your raw footage goes once you hit the send button. You don't actually know if it's going to be involving comedy or something a bit more nefarious or something dark. So yeah, I quite enjoyed telling the BBC to fuck off on 2 occasions and threatening them with getting the lads to put him out, so there we have it. Anyway, I think that's me over and done. 10 minutes, right, that's not too bad. Anyway folks, weather's warm, sky's blue again, so I'm out getting some fresh air, and I'm not going to say vibes, because vibes, if you take the literal sense of vibes, that's a nickname for a vibrator. Anyway folks, catch you later.